Man, that sunset is gorgeous.
Grill, patio, sunset. Hard to get better than that. Unless you're browsing Carvana's inventory while you soak it all in.
Oh, burger time.
So sit back, get comfortable. Carvana's got thousands of cars under $20,000 just waiting for you.
I could stay here forever.
Carvana, where car buying meets comfort, meets convenience. Download the app or visit Carvana.com today.
Man, that sunset is gorgeous.
Grill, patio, sunset. Hard to get better than that. Unless you're browsing Carvana's inventory while you soak it all in.
Oh, burger time.
So sit back, get comfortable. Carvana's got thousands of cars under $20,000 just waiting for you.
I could stay here forever.
Carvana, where car buying meets comfort, meets convenience. Download the app or visit Carvana.com today.
Contained within the Tibetan Book of the Dead is a description of a realm that spans between death and one's rebirth. Bardo, as it is named, is outlined as a state of existence where consciousness is free of the physical body. According to this philosophy, it is within this state the consciousness is unchained and free to stretch out and experience the truest sense of reality. Unfortunately, this stage of enlightenment can quickly be followed by terrifying hallucinations, and a person who is not properly trained or enlightened can become trapped within extended cycles of memory where they recall and experience their thoughtless actions during their lifetime. Statistics show that nearly 17% of those who are close to death experience a wide range of phenomena, which they describe occurrences like distorted time, out-of-body experiences, and communicating with deceased relatives. These events have noticeable and long-lasting effects on those who seemingly return from the edges of death. This case file joined the theorists as they dip their toes into the river Styx and explore the shores of near-death experiences.
Welcome to Alien Theorists Theorizing Case File 180, NDEs, Near Death Experiences. I'm Braden.
I'm Zell.
I'm Dan.
And I'm Andrew.
All right. And I mean, this is a highly requested topic. So to start this one off right away, we have a guest on the line. She goes by Snow Forest, and she has her own NDE experience from a handful of years ago. And we're going to bring her on the line right now. She's going to go through what it was like before, during, what happened, and her events afterwards. She's local to us, BC. And so here she is. Hello, can you hear us?
I can. How are you guys doing?
Awesome. Thanks, Snow. Thanks for coming on the show to tell your story.
You're welcome. Yeah, it's a very long story, but if I give you some tidbits of information, you can kind of flow with it. I would say now it's been about 4.5 years ago, I found myself on a very interesting path. So at that time of my life, I feel like I had everything kind of like the regular life, the conventional life, fully alive. Like I had a really good job, and I had a house, and I had a partner, and I had all the things that you would quote unquote want to have in your life. But there was something in my soul that was like really just always felt like missing. And ever since I was a little girl, I was very called to the natural world and to living close to nature and to plants and things like that. And it just came to a point in my life where I just witnessed that like I wasn't happy with all the things that I was supposed to have, you know. And I went through the regular tract, and I got the education and all these things. And I ended up getting a job actually in Kelowna, working for Interior Health. And so I left my job in Ontario. I'm originally from Ontario, actually. I moved to Kelowna to potentially take this job offer. And when I got there, it was like literally something inside of myself, my soul just knew that something was like not right. Like it wasn't sitting right, even though it was like a fantastic job. It was managing basically a team. It would have been like so much money, and it would be like another step in my corporate career, so to speak. When I got to my office place, I looked at the office and I just remember feeling the sense of dread in my body and just witnessing like, this is not my life. Like, this is not what I'm supposed to be doing. And when I walked into this place, 1626 Richter Street, I turned left, it was my office. And then I turned to the right and it was the Canadian School of Natural Nutrition. And everything in my body was just like, oh, I'm exactly where I need to be. I just need to look in a different direction. So it was kind of like a crossroads of where my life was changing and switching around.
Right.
So I ended up going to school for holistic medicine, and everything started to come alive. I ended up getting a grant from the government. So things started like falling into place, and like everything was free, and it just like was pushing me sort of on this path. Anyways, fast forward 2 years later, I graduate, and I, at that point, just didn't want to go back to that corporate life. So I just kept exploring, got really deep into plants and started studying herbalism. And then at that point, I just felt like the things in my life no longer were like very appealing to me. Like the whole structure that I had, even the partner that I was with, the things that I had, I just became progressively more like unhappy with the way that my life was moving towards, even though materially I had everything that I wanted. So I decided to quit everything. And I went through a very big cathartic period of my life where I literally removed everything in my life. And so I went through like, I guess, a dark night of the soul, or like some sort of big death experience where I just decided that, you know what, I'm not happy doing what I'm doing, so I'm just not going to do it anymore. I just got to that point. So I sold everything. I put my house up for sale and I moved out into the middle of nowhere. I moved into a small little town north of Lumby, or like a small little place in the woods, like north of Lumby. Lumby is like a town of like 200 people.
Yep.
And I decided to dedicate myself to studying plants and living in a trailer. So I lived with no running water, no electricity, by myself in the middle of the woods. And I just decided to fully dedicate myself to the path that was calling to me, which was the plants. So I forgo everything in my life. I live without money. I only had my car, which was a smart car that I recently lived out of, and my trailer. But I was happy. Like there was a part of myself that came alive with like finding out like what certain plants attributed to certain medicines. And so I just started to make wild teas in the forest and wildcrafted these wild teas. And I would go into the co-op and I would trade for food like beans and rice and things at the co-op like that I could cook. And then they would basically sell my teas. So I was living completely off grid and like completely out of the system. And at that period of time, I had this really deep spiritual experience where I felt like the land was calling me to like a deeper calling in my life. And so I made this prayer at the top of the hill one day where I said, hey, like I literally surrendered everything in my entire life to be of service to spirit, to be of service to Mother Earth. And if there's something bigger than me, please make it very, very apparent what this bigger thing is in my life. The next day, one of my mentors like rushed up the hill. I meditate every day on this hill, drinking different teas and stuff. He came up and he was like, oh my God, like I just had this like crazy dream about you. You cannot come up here by yourself. I thought that you died up here. And I was like, oh my gosh, Dawn, you're totally crazy. Like, I'm fine. I'm just meditating up here. Like, you don't have to freak out. I'm totally good. I'm fine. He's like, no. He came up with his bear bell. He's like ringing this bear bell. And I was like, don't freak out. Like, I'm totally okay. And then the next day I died. And I'll tell you a little bit more about how I died. So basically I was working with women's medicine. So a medicine called Angelica root or Dong Quai. And this is known in traditional medicine as a plant of healing the womb or healing women's hormones to help create like regular menstrual cycles.
Okay.
This plant is a carrot family plant. So it has basically white flowering tops. There is another plant that looks identical to it. It's called water hemlock.
Yes.
And this plant is extremely poisonous. And if you get 2 drops of this resin on your skin, it can kill a man in 15 minutes by way of cutting off the peripheral nervous system. So you basically end up suffocating to death but it keeps your brain intact so that you can recall every experience in your body, because it doesn't affect the brain, just it affects the things below your spinal cord, like below your neck.
Just to put it into context for people, it's a central nervous system depressant, right? So it has a lot of the similar effects as like an opioid, right?
It's a peripheral nervous system suppressant. So it keeps your brain alive and normal, but your extremities, like your arms, your legs, your diaphragm, your muscles, they go numb and they stop functioning. Mm-hmm.
Oh, doesn't sound great.
So basically, I was making a tea from angelica root, and I was called to the specific plant to make this tea. And I got a message from Spirit. I'm very intuitive. It was like, this is just for you, not for anybody else, just for you. And I said, okay. So I made this, what we call a decoction, where I soak this root in water. But in the low-lying marshland where I wildcrafted this plant, there was, I guess, suspected water hemlock growing in the vicinity. So the groundwater was contaminated with water hemlock. And it's so potent that this like the circuitoxin basically, we believe, we don't know for sure, but got sucked into the angelica root. So I ended up taking a decoction or a tea that had a mixture of angelica root and water hemlock. If you look at it from an energetic space, it's like taking a plant of the white, like angelica, angel plant, and hemlock, death, dark, death. So it's like white and black. So it's like a yin yang mixture of like some substance. Anyway, so I went on top of this hill the next day. I did a little invocation. I sat down and I said, look, listen, I'm surrendering myself to service for Mother Earth. Like, what do I need to do for my life? I'm totally done chasing the corporate dream, and I'm here to like sit in the service of what I'm supposed to bring. And I drank this decoction. So it's basically the herb that sat in water. And then within 5 minutes, I knew something was terribly wrong. So I started to like get double vision. I started to like feel like my whole body was separating itself. Like my soul, my spirit was coming out of my physical body. And so instead of going back down the hill, like by hiking, I jumped off a ravine and basically got cut with like hawthorn berries and raspberry bushes and blackberry bushes, because I just knew that something was just wrong. And so I went back to my trailer. I grabbed a plastic bag. I like initiated my own like heaving process to get whatever was inside out. But I was just called by spirit. Like I was on automatic mode. Like my brain was just like not functioning even. I was just like moving my body and like doing all the things, but like by the hand of spirit, like not by me.
Oh.
I turned open this plant book, and when I was looking down, it was like trying to read, angelica, if there's any contraindication, something I missed about it. And it literally felt like it just turned the page itself. And then I was looking at hemlock, because I didn't even know about this plant before. It was like hemlock, 2 drops of the skin will kill a man in 15 minutes. And then everything in my body fell like a brick, like, whoa. And I just thought of like that movie Into the Wild. And I was like, okay, wow, I'm going to die here. So I had to come like face to face with this feeling of, oh shit, I'm going to fucking die. Sorry, stupid language. But
okay.
Anyway, so I grabbed my bag of vomit. I'm like delirious by this time and like dry heaving and like just everything, So I walked down to the house, and it's a miracle because the only 2 other people that live on the property was Dawn Elzer, which was like my mentor, and Willow. Her name is Willow Tree. She just moved to the forest like literally the day before. I hadn't even met her yet. It turns out that she was an EMS nurse from Alberta that had just retired. So her trailer that she brought had medical equipment in her trailer. So it was like a miracle.
Fortunate, yeah.
Right. So they were like waiting to greet me. It was like the weirdest thing. And usually everybody during the day is like foraging in the woods or like off, like not in the sense, like in the house or whatever. And so I stumble up to them, and then they were like, oh my God, are you okay? And I was like, no, like I'm dying. You need to call poison control. And they're like, no, just come into the house. Everything's gonna be fine. Have a tea. I was like, no, I'm dying. Like I need to.
That's what got me into this.
We gotta go. And so they started giving me water. Okay. So this is interesting. They started giving me water, but water, it initiates the properties of water hemlock. It makes it stronger. So they were inducing a trip. So basically it's like whatever spirit wanted me to have experience with this plant, like it was like, okay, now we're going to activate the plant in her body. So basically we'll skip a little bit of time here. Basically they call the ambulance. They say from Vernon Hospital, like, look, listen, like this girl, she's dying in our arms. Cause I progressively got worse, like within 10 minutes, like my blood pressure was at 0. My heart rate was at 18 beats per minute. Like I was fully, well, for them looking at me dying, but I was fully alive. So, like I had awareness about what was happening in my body. Miraculously, they said, okay, we don't have a vehicle. It's not going to arrive in for an hour and a half.
No.
But then they get a call back. They get a call back 5 minutes later saying that there's a miraculous vehicle that showed up in Lumby and they're going to send it and it'll be there in 5 minutes. So nobody even knows how that's possible still to this day, but that's what happened. And they said, okay, Willow, because she was a nurse, she asked them, she's like, is this a basics vehicle or an advanced vehicle? And they said, well, it's a basics vehicle. She goes, no, she needs cardiac arrest support. She needs an advanced vehicle. She's dying. So they send another vehicle from Vernon Hospital to meet me halfway. And in the meeting point of these two vehicles meeting, I lost breathing for like 2 minutes. So they didn't pronounce me dead yet because my heart rate was still at like 6 beats per minute or something, but like almost stopped.
Yeah.
But I used like my breathwork techniques from yoga because like I studied yoga for 15 years and basically expanded the prana in my body to like survive no oxygen for 2 minutes. I had conscious awareness this entire time. So then they transfer me over to this vehicle. I go into the hospital. And by this time, I'm totally out of my body, but I'm completely conscious. So I know that consciousness exists out of my body.
Can you explain that to us? Sorry.
So I'm existing in consciousness, but I'm not existing any longer in my body. So that's why I know that consciousness exists outside of our body and inside of the body, but it's not just inside of who we think we are.
So you're fully conscious on the trip when you're almost pronounced dead.
I'm seeing everything happening, yes, from a bird's eye view.
Different vantage point.
Yes, but also I could travel from there too and not just watch that, but I could see anything. Like I could go anywhere.
Like you're like an astral projection type of thing? Like you can travel consciously?
Yes, like I exist. It's hard to explain with like the physical, like eyes, nose, ears, and mouth kind of senses, but I'm existing in everything. You can't even, there's no words to it. It's like you can be anything, but there's no thought, like there's no mind. It's like a feeling and an awareness that is so grand beyond our conceptual ability, dimensional space.
Right.
Mm-hmm. So the multidimensional space, like sometimes if you do different types of plant understanding or an in-depth knowledge of something, like we've done psychotropics, but this was a completely different experience because there was nothing even grounding myself in the physical body anymore. So it was my plant initiation that I was going through. And so I ended up going into the hospital and they induced my coma. So they put me in the coma, but then when they tried to take me back out, I wouldn't come out. So I ended up being in a coma for 5 days. But in that 5 days, yeah. But in that space of 5 days, it was like having a DMT trip for 5 days, but also like eternity. So if you've ever done DMT, I don't know if you guys done DMT before.
Not DMT, other ones, but not that one.
Okay, so DMT is the chemical that's released at the point of death, but certain plants like ayahuasca is DMT, or 5-MeO DMT that comes from toads called bufo, which I also work with as a plant medicine holder now. It can induce a state of like that is identical to the point of transition when you die. And in that state, it's a complete out of body, like full blown psychedelic experience. And it needs to be guided by somebody that understands the space, because they're not medicines that we just play around with. They're very sacred.
Powerful, yeah.
But they're super powerful, yeah. But when we die, our brain releases that same chemical and we start to understand the fabric of the way the universe is actually woven. And this is only from my experience, of course. I'm not here to talk about everybody's experiences and mine as being true. But in my experience, it is so profound to know the capabilities of consciousness in general and how it weaves through everything. And so it was like a 5-day DMT experience. And of course, anytime you do some sort of psychotropic, you have potentially a new forming idea of what reality is. This one was very, very profound for me. And then basically, and on the 5th day, the doctors told my parents, they said, if she doesn't wake up, she might have organ damage. So what do you want to do? We have to kind of create a plan for her. And they said, okay, well, when I was a little girl, I told my mom, if I'm ever in a coma, you need to let me go after the 7th day. I specifically told her this when I was a little girl. And she was like, what are you talking about? Why? And yeah, and so she was like, and I used to always be obsessed with death when I was a kid, like this morbid child of like, I want to die, Mom. I wonder what it's like to die. Like she's always like, you're so strange. But it was just like part of a destined path is what I perceive it to be, you know?
Right.
So they told the doctors, okay, on the 7th day, we're going to respect her wishes. When she was a child, she said she didn't want to live anymore, so we're going to pull it. And in the multidimensional space, I could hear them talking. So I was like, oh, shoot, they're going to let my body go. What should I do? So there's a lot of details. And so I've been holding workshops across Canada, United States, in Mexico, Guatemala, Hawaii, New Zealand, Asia for the last 4 years, talking about my death experience and also talking about the states of consciousness that we move towards after we die. So that's the kind of work that I'm immersed in now. And I do private work with this as well. But basically is that I heard them in that space and was just, contemplating about whether or not I would come back into this body that I currently have, or if I would forego it. And well, this is my perception, of course. I'm not here to tell anybody what their belief systems are, but from my experience is that, do you choose another body or do you come back to this one?
Right. Because is your time up to move on or stay on this,
That's
in
right.
this one?
Well, it gave me a contemplation. It actually said, like you can, there is no such thing as time in the sense that you can just continue on in a different body and you would still have a destined path, But if you want to come back now, then it's already there. Your body's there already. You're going to remember, and it's going to be a lot easier for you to remember your divine nature if you just come back into this body now. So then I kind of like, it's not like I'm thinking and making decisions like I'm intellectualizing like in this moment, but there's parts of like a knowing space in the consciousness field that you can kind of make decisions by your heart. And so at that point I was faced with like a very, very bright light, like at the very end of my journey. So like it would take me too long actually to explain every single state of consciousness that we move forward. That's like 5 stages. It's very long.
Right.
But in the end, I did see a light, and it was so immense that it's like rapturous. That's the word that I want to say. And before this, I'm pretty much like kind of an atheist. I was like curious about spiritual topics, but never really like religious or like had a firm understanding about what really happens when you die. I was like kind of oblivious to it until this moment. And so what I witnessed was a huge light, like all around, not me, but just I was that, or like merging with it. And it was rapturous. Like it brought like rapture to all of my, what you would even consider like not cells, but molecules of essence that I was. And it was like orgasmic, like the feeling of like complete bliss. And then in that state, I was like, the notion was like there's service to do on this planet. And when I connected with the act of service, then I could feel in one moment, everything just collapsed back into my body. And I went back down in through my head and back into my body, and then opened my eyes in the hospital.
Like you felt yourself be like absorbed back into your physical body.
Yeah, like a vacuum.
So now when you're having this like out of body experience, are you like looking down on yourself? Are you just pure like you just are you seeing yourself? Are you just hearing stuff, or how is that? How's that?
So the
experience?
5 stages, I'll just briefly state. So it was like first out of body. So then you see yourself, but you don't have a body, but you see yourself as a witness to your reality, the 3D reality. And then there's another state, which I call the placid lake state, which is where you can veer into consciousness and witness as a lake anything that ever happened. I call it like, people call it the Akasha, but I call it like clear placid lake state. It's like clarity of vision. And then there's a transcendence into like realms where I felt like there was like demonic entities and like angel entities and like different kinds of spirit forms. And then there was another realm, like there's just different realms that you transcend into while your body is like going through this, not body, your consciousness is moving through the portals and gateways to more of a liberation of your consciousness. That's how I would explain it. So when I get to the end, it's this tunnel of darkness, like pure potential, like darkness, like expanse forever, like anything that does nothing exists. And it's what I call 0 point consciousness. Other people use this term as well as 0 point consciousness. It's where everything is created and everything is destroyed. And then in that moment, that's when I saw the light. And then in that light, there was a knowing of everything, kind of like there's service here. We're caretaking this planet. Like, like, and I could go through a whole thing. I won't go through all of it, but it's like the all-knowing essence is what I want to say, from the space of love, like the immense love, like a baby was born, or like, you know, your best friend like does the most amazing thing for you, get married, or like, I don't know, I'm just trying to use human, you know, experiences to explain this kind of vast intimacy that you have in that space. And once you had that, then it was like, okay, do I go back into my body or do I just choose another one? And then in that moment, I was like, well, I just got to go back to mine because like I'll remember everything, you know? So then I went back, and then boom, the vacuum all the way.
And then you felt, and then you like open your eyes right as soon as you were absorbed back into your body. You open your eyes and you're out of your coma.
Yeah, and everybody in the room was like in shock.
Wow.
And then my mom told me, and people in the hospital would tell me too, like I was so, like my experience is that I was pure love of consciousness. Like I can't even explain that. It's like the feeling of complete enlightened bliss, like complete oneness. And then from that space, within 72, or what is it, 72? No, on the seventh day, so 48 hours later, I was released from the hospital walking by miraculous circumstance.
No organ damage.
No organ damage. I had bruising on my arms from them strapping me down because I had grand mal seizures, because the plant was like impacting my ability to like keep control over my body. I guess it was affecting my cerebellum or something. So I had bruises on my arms and legs because they had to strap me down because I was like literally having full blown like body seizures.
That's amazing, because you would think that you would be in some sort of like renal failure. You'd assume that there would be some rhabdomyolysis created by that. Like, and for you to be able to walk away from that 2 days later is absolutely fucking blows my mind.
So like a medical miracle.
So,
absolutely.
Yeah, but it doesn't stop there. Like this is just the beginning of the story. But okay, so then after I come out of the hospital, like my entire 3D existence is totally changed. And still now I live a totally surreal life. But it's like time for me doesn't exist. Like spatialness does exist with our minds. So time and space exist with our minds. It's a human construct, but it's actually an illusion. We can play with it. It doesn't actually fully exist. So when you change that, when you think, oh, I have all the time in the world to do anything that I ever wanted, think about that for a moment. It's like, I could do anything. And then when there's like, oh, space doesn't exist, that means I can go anywhere. I can do anything. Like it's limitless potential. So that's how it's changed my life completely. But the number one defining factor of change is the space of gratitude for life, breath, and unconditional loving presence. That is the thing that changed it forever. It's like this unconditional, unwavering space of presence in my body towards anybody, anything, any relationship that I have. Mm-hmm. And I didn't have that before. Not like this. Not like, I don't even know how to explain that until you can be it.
So a complete, like a complete transformation from the person you were before to after.
Yeah. I just realized that many of the things that I was doing was out of fear, not out of liberation.
Oh.
Because I realized that life is a complete gift, and every moment and every breath is a complete miracle. Like that we are conscious beings that exist without the constructs of our body. But then when we exist in our body, it's a gift from this earth plane that we can exist in a vehicle that's tactile, that we can experience every single moment with pleasure. Because the thing is, when you're undefined consciousness, you are everything in content, but you don't get to play in the polarities of this universe. You don't get to play in like the good and the bad and the emotional and the humanness and the, joys and pleasures of eating and procreation and, So we have physical bodies. It's like such a gift to have this. Because in the consciousness space, everything is cool, but it's like content. And it's not it's not a ride, it's not a play. It's just like as is.
Right. So,
but now we have bodies so we can play with them. Mm-hmm.
Right. So it's like we grow up in this material plane and like bound by society's constructs. And then it seems, because your story is very similar to other, like many others that you read of, like mm-hmm. how the experience of the NDE like completely changes your perception of not only like your life, but like, the universe, like consciousness in general. Like, so then mm-hmm. when you come back, you're like, well, that job, like all the stuff that we're told means everything to us is not really mm-hmm. anything.
Yeah, exactly. Because it's just part of a social, cultural conditioning patterning that we carry in the ego.
Right. So it's kind of like, I mean, because I've done, like mushrooms and LSD and stuff, and that is obviously a very minor version of, an NDE, like that complete, but it is like ego dissolving in that way, right? And similar, right? Where you do it and you come up while you're in it, you're like, oh, like this stuff. Like, no, none of this really makes sense. And then when it takes like weeks almost to come back to like your previous state of mind.
Yes, yes. So there's that aspect. And then the other aspect is that the miracle's just begun from that point. So basically what I was witnessing after that is that, okay, so the story gets weirder. Like I went back home to Ontario with my family, and I went to go see my family doctor just to tell her that I still had numbness in my fingertips, just like mild numbness. And so I just wanted her to monitor to see if something progressed in the future. Cause they weren't sure if I would have like residual damage, going forward. Like they're like, you could die. Like, we don't even know why you're alive. Like you could, something could happen in a week. And so you need to so for me, it was like full gratitude for every moment that I had. Like, I didn't even know if I would make it for like a day or week or whatever. So living like that was kind of like, oh my gosh, I just have to take the best of every moment. That's a big teaching for sure. Anyways, I go see my family doctor, and she says to me, oh my gosh, this is such a crazy story. You have to meet my husband. And I said, why? She said, because my husband is a teacher in Rishikesh, India, and he studies near-death experiences, and we want you to be a speaker for us.
So wow. This event not only changed your life, but also like allowed you to take this message to like many people, like to the masses.
Yeah. Well, yeah, like other people just like right away, though. It was like in 1 week. And then I was already starting to speak about my story within a week. And then from there, doing the little talks, like I would have even like 10 or 15 people. Those little talks turned into other little talks. And I don't like doing big talks because I'm very sensitive energetically, which is why I live in a small fishing town in Mexico. I kind of like, have some space. But yeah, I started to go from place to place, like float centers, yoga studios, personal meetings, clients, and then started to go across Canada. And I was brought into the States. And these are not from mental choices. These are from people inviting me to do work or chat or do little events and stuff. So it brought me pretty much like halfway around the world until now. But what I want to say to the point of that is that manifest reality is happening within our consciousness, not within our mind. And that once there's a dissolve of ego to a point, the manifestation reality becomes so strong that when you perceive a need, like if you perceive a need, is provided to you very almost immediately. This is my experience with my reality. Like I don't try so much. I just let. Mm-hmm.
Right.
So they're falling away from all of this is the lack of doing, and the more in being in presence and gratitude continuously with our authenticity and our story of what we bring in everybody's life, but especially in mine as well, being just honest with who I am and just sharing from that space. And yeah, and the fears keep us bound to a lot of the things, right? Like you need to do this because you need money, because you need to eat, or you need to do this because you have to like make sure your family's fine, or you're, a lot of these things that are beautiful, because if it's out of love, it's beautiful. But also at the end of the day, when you die, the only things that really matter are the people that loved you and who you loved. Like love transcends time, space, dimension. It's infinite. But without that, it's like nothing else really matters or exists. That's what I experienced.
Well said.
It's beautiful.
Now, we said we'd keep you for around half an hour, and we're at that. And yeah. I feel like we could, you could have your own podcast. You don't have your own, do you? If you don't, no. You probably should.
Yeah, totally.
I know everybody always like, where's your videos? Where's your podcast? Where's your thing? And that's the thing. I just recognize that when it's needed, like if it flows, then I just do it. But if
it comes your way,
if you guys invite me, if it comes my way, then for sure. Yes. But there's no like, I mean, I'm doing well, like just being myself.
So Snow, how can people follow any of your work or anything like that? Like, how can they look you up?
Yeah, they can find my website. It's, labyrinthholistichealth.com. And what I offer is soul path alignment and soul path oracle readings. So I call myself an oracle because I can actually read the snowflake signatures, is how I coin it, the essence of a person's soul. I can read the blueprint of that and kind of help them step into what their divinity wants to bring out through them from their gifts. So what their service is in life, and then help them align their energy field towards making that happen. So that's labyrinthholistic.health.com. And then I'm also a web designer, photographer, but I help individuals set up conscious business so that they can move forward into their life with sovereignty with using those divine gifts. So I help basically birth what their service is into the world and help people sustain themselves.
That's
so
awesome.
that's sarahsnowphotography.com, and then Labyrinth Holistic Health. And they can always just add me to Facebook. That's Snow Forest.
Awesome.
On Facebook.
We'll be sure to include, if you're listening to the podcast, all those links will be in the description, so you can, follow her. It's really awesome. We really appreciate you coming on. We're going to take a short break for the live stream. Stay on the line. We're going to say bye to you. And for people watching the stream, we'll be right back.
Man, that sunset is gorgeous.
Grill, patio, sunset. Hard to get better than that. Unless you're browsing Carvana's inventory while you soak it all in.
Oh, burger time.
So sit back, get comfortable. Carvana's got thousands of cars under $20,000 just waiting for you.
I could stay here forever.
Carvana, where car buying meets comfort, meets convenience. Download the app or visit Carvana.com today. The comfort of your favorite seat is now your comfy car selling command center, thanks to Carvana.
It doesn't get any better than this.
Your favorite seat's the best spot in the house. Make it even better by entering your license plate or VIN and getting a real offer in minutes.
There really is no place like home.
And speaking of home, Carvana will pick up your car from yours after you finalize your offer. Visit Carvana.com or download the app and sell your car from your comfy place.
We're back.
We back.
That was cool. Cool story.
How's everybody feeling after that? That was a good one, eh?
My mind's boggled. I feel like I'm on the astral plane, but I didn't do any mushrooms.
I tell you, any one of you motherfuckers post another Instagram story, you're going to have an NDE.
I'll tell you in after hours what Braden's talking about.
You're going to have one.
Sounds like
it's very interesting to hear from someone who's had an experience like that, because I mean, I've talked about it before on the show when I used to dabble with some some
magical chemicals,
mind altering substances when I was much younger. One time did too many, had a very similar experience. I had the experience of the outer body experience.
Without the death.
I had a voice, like an overpowering voice. I'm not going to say it was a god or anything. It was just a voice. I could hear it. It was all around me. It was in me. It was everything. And it was just like, yeah, man, you died. Like, it was very like blunt, like, you died. I was like, oh shit.
Shit.
And then I was looking at my body on the bed, and it was like, yeah. And then it was like, don't worry, like, it's fine. This happens. And it was like, honestly, it was for me,
No,
like,
it's cool, man. You're just dead. Don't worry about it. It's not a big deal. You're fucking dead, though.
yeah, it wasn't this like overwhelming love, like she said. For me, it was like this, like, I was worried, but whatever
your pants.
whatever this was, like, whatever was talking to me was like this overwhelming, like, indifference. It was like, yeah, it's all good, man. Like, this happens. It's like, yeah, I can put you back wherever you want. And then as I was sitting there, like, in this void, I remember it was like film strips of like 8mm, like, old film. And I could just see everywhere. And it was like, yeah, just pick one. And I said, well, just put me in a good one. And it was like, all right. And then the next thing I know, I was like falling through the stars. I was just in space. It's like gravity had grabbed me again. And I was falling through it was like almost going through warp speed. And it was going so fast, and I could hear and see. And then I woke up naked making those noises. So, you know, take from that what you will. But
he's fucking sweating. He's got Dorito crust on his chest, buck ass naked on his bed.
6 bags of flaming hot Cheetos.
Yeah.
You had some similarities except for the rapid onset of death.
Yes.
Yeah, this is where I call bullshit in your story. Is you told them to choose something good and it put you back in your body. That doesn't make any sense to me.
What are you talking about? I'm a modern day Adonis.
from
you
a
talking about?
different timeline,
Buddy,
mate, perhaps.
you go back to, you look at the Greek statues. How many look like you and how many look like me? All of them look like me, motherfucker.
All of them.
They all
There's
have
only
tiny
one thing you
dicks.
got in common with them,
They got
buddy.
tiny dicks.
It's one thing you got. You're all balls. That's it.
What? Hey, did I?
All balls and bush.
I'm not arguing. I'm saying they all look like me. All right.
Oh shit!
But yeah, it's
Wild experience.
It's interesting to hear someone like that who has like a real one in the pill, like the similars. It makes you think that sometimes when you do these hallucinogenics that, you know, produce DMT in small doses or whatnot, it's you are maybe unlocking something.
Right. Now, what exactly? Let's. I mean, that interview was kind of a last minute thing. We ended up getting there last minute, but we had a timeline. So, like, what exactly is like an NDE? What is there a description of it, or how is it defined? Just like, or is it just
a near death experience? I think is what it's called.
And so I didn't mean though, but it's like anyone but not everyone who's near death either doesn't remember them or like one in 10 people or something.
Basically, like a near-death experience is triggered during a singular life-threatening episode, whether it's like your body's injured from heart attack, shock, blunt trauma, etc. Now, the commonalities between these events that like Snow's story was like they become pain-free. They see a bright light. They detach from their body, like an out-of-body experience, or they're floating above space watching everything happen, right?
Right.
So that's kind of what we get from this. We have this life-threatening incident that completely pulls them away from what's actually happening, and it's that calming. Not always. You know what I mean? They're not always good experiences, which we'll probably get into, but it has to be some type of life-threatening event that's going to induce these experiences, right?
Yeah. I mean, it seems to be, of all the stories you can read on the internet, it all happens like with a rapid onset of unexpected death. Either like a lot of it, people who like fall, like mountain climbers and stuff, like seem to have this, or like, but not everyone who dies. So it's like there's a certain type of death where they're more common.
Yeah, like one statistic that was pretty surprising for me is 1 in 10 cardiac arrest survivors in hospital report having an NDE.
I wonder if it has something to do with you being consciously aware that you're going to die beforehand. Like if it's not rapid onset, because I think of like, yeah, it's perhaps it's like where you have enough fortitude to go like, oh shit, I'm going to die. Like that's it. That's when you trigger them. Whereas you don't even realize it. You don't even have enough time. Maybe that's where you see these experiences, like, you know, with these people who have a massive heart attack and they don't have this. Whereas other people I'll be like, holy shit, I'm having a heart attack. Like this is it. And then it triggers this, like, you know, this near death experience. But maybe it's giving your body enough time to like kind of pump you full of that DMT. When your body thinks that you're going into shock, it releases that. I kind of think of it like, you know, you see like you watch the Discovery Channel, you see like an animal getting eaten and it's just chilling, right? And it's just chilling, like not doing like, it's just
and I'm dead.
I'm dead. Yeah. And like, it's just laying there totally awake as it's getting eaten alive. And you're like, Jesus. And you're like, I don't think that thing's feeling pain anymore or anything. It's probably because it has this, you know, maybe it's similar to us. It has a conscious thought.
Which is like, that's defined as apparent death. So basically it's like the playing dead, feigning dead, playing possum type situation. And that kind of makes sense to me because like our minds, like we don't even really know the full capacity of our brain, right? And like when animals,
I know it of mine. It's fucking max right now.
So like when animals are getting
That's
attacked
max,
and stuff
you
like
got a
that, like you
problem.
were saying, they go into what they call as a tonic immobility, which your body goes completely flaccid, right? So you present like you are dead. So maybe that's our body's way of, you know what I mean, prepping us for eventual death. Because when you think about it, like when you're leading up to that death, whether what is the cause of this death, we can get into that later. But a lot of things, like, you know what I mean, you look at heart attack, your heart, you're not perfusing enough blood across your body, right? So what does your heart do? Your body tells your heart, hey, listen, we're not getting blood to our extremities. We need to pump faster. We need to work harder. So your heart starts pumping faster and faster and faster. Also, add on to that anxiety of the situation and stuff like that, which is just going to jack your heart rate up faster, which means the faster your heart pumps, the less time it has to fill with blood to perfuse your body, which is completely counterproductive. Right? So maybe these NDEs of convincing you that you're in a calm, relaxing environment is a way of trying to induce your body into slowing your heart rate down and relaxing and that things are okay.
Looks like a evolutionary adaptation, maybe.
Potentially. We don't know, right?
Right. Dan, what do you think?
So there is also the fact that NDEs have also been associated with the stimulation or some sort of like trauma to the temporal lobe or temporal-parietal lobe. So this part of your body is usually that part of your brain, what most medical scientists associated its function with is like your awareness of space. And I think that actually might play a part in the out-of-body experience facet of the near-death experience, because when you think about it, like the temporal lobe, this is responsible for like your touch and your feel, like your awareness of your body and like what it's doing. So if you shut that down, or it is somehow like, you know, if there is trauma or something like that, and your temporal lobe is for some reason or part of it is even like disabled or doesn't fire right, well, some of the neurons are impaired.
Just to touch on that really quick, Dan, to help you expand on that, is that's going to happen eventually with death, right? Because as you're perfusing, your body is not sending oxygenated blood to your brain. It's shunting it to your fucking heart, whatnot, and you're not getting that perfusion to the brain, and that's what's causing that effect to the cortex, right? Because like it's the outermost layer of your brain and it's going to stop working, and it's slowly going to be like think of it like the power is going out in your town, right? That hits this town and then the town beside it and the next one and the next one and the next one, right? So as your brain stops getting that oxygenated blood, it's going to start shutting down. So no matter what happens, that's what's going to lead. You know, part of death is the shutting down of your brain.
Right.
Right. So perhaps that impairment of your temporal lobe and your pretty much your facility to perceive spatial awareness is then your body shifts, or your brain, the parts of that are still working, shift into this thing, because our brains are very good. They're evolved to kind of make stories, to make narratives, to make patterns, so to make sense of whatever you're seeing or whatever you're experiencing, just so you don't go crazy. And maybe part of it is to be like, okay, well, I'm going to show myself what I think is happening. I'm going to show myself, because now that there's no space, I don't have this, because everybody, most people, it might differ from culture to culture. You have an idea of personal space. Is that correct? Like you have a personal bubble, right?
Yeah, I'd say.
Okay. And a lot of psychologists, a lot of like neuroscientists would say that our consciousness is directly linked to our like awareness of our body. So like the touch, like you wouldn't be yourself. You wouldn't be who you are without the sensations, right? Like your feeling of touch, your sense, your smell, all of that input that's perceived and how it's interpreted by your brain, blah, blah, blah. And if you take all of that away, then your brain has to be like, okay, now I don't have this limitation. I'm not, or not the limitation, but I'm not really sure. I'm not sure where I am, but I'm trying to make that away. I'm trying to make sense of it. So your brain kind of takes you out of it, right? I think that would also make sense in when you're talking about people who feel like the eternity stretches on forever. I can see everything. That's because your consciousness is now lost part of its sensory. It's part of its perception. Now your brain feels like it can see everything because you have no sense of personal space, because your touch, all of the stuff that defines your personal bubble, your physical self, is gone. So I would feel like that would probably explain part of the out-of-body experience.
What about people who are like, you read the stories of people who were like dead for half an hour. So, I mean, they're clinically dead, yet they seem to still experience like so the brain is shut down, I guess, with no oxygen. But
I think you have to really carefully define what clinically dead means, because there are a couple of
let's
define
it.
definitions.
What's
Basically,
clinically dead?
Irreversibly dead is basically irreversible loss of the capacity for consciousness.
No.
Is basically
Well,
like
how do
the
you
textbook
define
term for that.
Loss of consciousness if you can't really define consciousness when someone's dead?
Well, my question is like it depends on the situation, right? Because is this guy getting artificial perfusion? Is he getting compressions? You know what I mean? Like, are you breathing for him? Is he receiving artificial respirations? Like, we don't necessarily know. The only way, like in a lot of these studies, like these people are hooked up to EEGs and in a hospital setting. So yes, they are, and they've obviously successfully reached ROSC, like a return of spontaneous circulation. So we know because they've lived to tell the tale, right?
There's one girl that I thought was a really interesting case, Mary Neal. She's like a actual neurosurgeon or like a spinal surgeon now, but she was kayaking in Chile. Long story short, she got pinched off the wrong way in the river, had to go down the steep waterfall, got trapped underwater for half an hour, and like had the same thing, like left her body for half an hour. Because after how much oxygen deprivation are you supposed to be brain dead?
Well, there is one thing that could add to that though. Like if it's extremely cold water, you can live within cold water for way longer.
But I know,
right? Like
I did see that, but like what's considered extremely cold? I couldn't find out how cold the water is. Obviously there was no temperature gauge, but would 8 degrees, 10 degrees colder?
You know what though? Like I will say, like the percentage of getting ROSC or return of spontaneous circulation with a drowning victim is extremely rare. Like I don't even think we get 10% back of drowning. So that's pretty substantial. That being said, I'd have to look it up, but I believe I think it's pretty close to 45 minutes. If we find somebody under the water in freezing temperatures in the water, we will pull them out and attempt to resuscitate.
It definitely wasn't freezing. I know that for a fact. But
okay.
Yeah, either way, I'm just saying, like that's the hard thing about NDEs is like, when does consciousness, like it's hard to measure it if the person's unconscious and so they're experiencing, so they leave their body with their experience. They are looking down at themselves. They see the light above, they see their body below. Obviously, if in that instance, you don't really have any perception of time. Are you out of body while you're still alive, technically, but you think you've been out of your body for much longer? Or are you out of your body while you're dead and consciousness is separate from the body? That's like the big debate, right?
I still think you could associate that perception or that with the temporal lobe. Like you can still, if you're losing, because your sense of time is is pretty much linked to your bodily functions. It's it could be linked to either like your cycle of hunger. It could be your cycle of like seeing the sun, the amount of light that you're getting, all of these things, because there is no perception of time because you have no perception.
Basically, like to retouch on when I was explaining like the irreversible loss of capacity for consciousness, that's going to be the difference between like ischemia, like a deprivation of oxygen-rich blood to the brain, as opposed to infarction, which is like dead tissue. Once we get to the point of like fucking complete dead tissue, you're toast. That's it. Nothing's coming back.
And that's the thing though. Like, so at that point, like if the dead tissue, you don't know that's the whole thing. Like they don't know, like if the dead tissue is your consciousness still alive, you can't measure it. That's like the whole metaphysical version of like, Is consciousness living in your mind? And when you die and it's dead tissue, does your consciousness transfer somewhere else? Or does it die with the physical body? And it's like almost impossible to really know because you're not coming, no one's coming back once the tissue is dead, right? No one's being brought back to life.
Is.
Yeah.
No.
Not yet, at least. Not until they have some type of treatment where they can actually reverse like dead cells or something.
Something that I found interesting with a lot of the stuff, a lot of the research I went down to, a lot of the like academic articles and studies that I went through, a lot of literature reviews. I touched on one literature review that went through at least like 40 years, like since 1975 of research into NDEs and things like this, is that a lot of it is centered, a lot of the research, which is probably, this is a flaw in the gathering of the data, is that a lot of the anecdotal evidence for NDEs, a lot of the things that we that we have collected that allow us to kind of talk about NDEs, it's all centered in Western culture. It's all centered within mostly the US and mostly Europe. We have bits and pieces from other countries, but the perceptions about what happens, like their near-death experiences, actually vary very widely in other countries. You do get these broad commonalities of the tunnel of light. You get these things like that within Western culture, but other cultures perceive something completely different.
And it's like a lot of times the tunnel of light, you know what I mean? For example, is something that can be explained as easy as, like I was talking before, when you're going into these states, it's shock basically, right? So what happens when you're in shock? Your blood shunts to your essential organs to keep them alive, like the organs vital for survival. And a lot of times it's going to shunt blood away from the visual periphery retinas, right? So you're going to lose that sight. So it's going to look like fucking tunnel vision to you.
Yeah. And so that is part of it. But also some NDEers don't experience the whole tunnel of light. Like that doesn't happen at all. What was it? One of the ones that I came up with I thought was pretty interesting was an experience from Thailand that I thought was interesting. And so this one here is, so I found myself in the judgment hall of Yama's palace, and Yama's like the god of the dead. He's like the judgment. He's pretty much what is it? Like Osiris or whatever in the Egyptian mythology. But anyways, so I knew that they were ready to judge me for my sins. A giant rooster appeared who told Yama that I had killed him. He emphasized that I had tried to kill him again and again. The rooster also said that he remembered me exactly. An entire flock of roosters also testified that I had killed them as well. I remembered my actions, and I had to admit that the roosters had told the truth. Yama said that I had committed many sins and sentenced me to many rebirths, both as a chicken and many other types of birds as well. But quite suddenly, an enormous turtle appeared. It screamed at Yama, saying, "Don't take him. He is a good human and should be allowed to live." Yama answered the turtle, what did he do to help you? The turtle answered, "Long ago, I almost died because another of these humans wanted to eat me. This man prevented him, and so I was able to live out my life." Yama asked the turtle if he had any evidence. The turtle asked to be turned upside down and told Yama to look at his underside where he would see where the man had carved his name so many years ago. Yama saw the man's name was there, just as the turtle had
name
said.
Into a turtle.
And he believed the turtle's story. Yama announced that he was canceling the sentence, told me that when I revived, I was to take a vow not to kill any living thing.
Wait, who was this?
Hey, listen, this guy cuts his 6-pack holders for sure. Like this guy.
Who is this guy? Say
He's
this.
doing it right.
Who is he?
This was taken from a study of Thai near-death experiences from Todd Murphy in a study in 2015?
So his near-death experiences is this rooster and turtle tail.
Well, it wasn't Todd Murphy, but it was one of the accounts that he gathered while he was
yeah.
doing his study on near-death experiences.
So,
but you know what I mean? Like it still plays like the classic tune of like, you know, if some religions of like you will be judged and that. So it's like if your brain is just manifesting like what you've been told and what you know, right? That would make sense to me if he's been told like you are judged by a God. They weigh your sins against your good deeds and then decide if you should.
Well, how'd this guy die? What was his NDE?
The big thing that I get from this too is like each one of these people, like a Christian has an NDE, they're having a Christian experience.
Yeah.
A Catholic has an NDE, a Catholic's having a fucking experience. If a Thai guy that believes in magical turtles is having a fucking NDE, that's the type of one he's having.
And if an atheist believes in probably nothing, your NDE might try and show you a light, like a metaphysic, like a God, but it's not a directed God.
But here's my thing though, like this is something that kind of throws a wrench in this entire thing is approximately 20% of people who have an NDE undergo a dark or distressing NDE that has a hellish or perdition theme.
Well, could it be just like based on the person?
I feel like there's a lot of flaws in these studies because there's actually probably a majority of NDEs that go unreported because
for sure.
Because they either like
they
out of shame or people like
or
don't believe in them and they say, okay, I saw something, but I interpret it differently. But you also have the ones that like, I would say be careful of like documentaries and things like this, because I feel like they only present one view. Like they only present the good ones. That's another part of a couple of the articles that I came across that have analyzed a lot of the studies that have been done, is that a lot of them tend to be the good experiences, the revisiting of past or good moments in your life, or meeting with deceased family members, or having good experiences with angels.
So what you're
and
saying,
whatever.
for every person that has one where they're like, I'm no longer scared to death, and like there's something else, there's another person that's like, I cannot die because I will not go back to that place I visited before.
Scared straight.
Totally.
It's absolute
And
hell.
there's also ones who have experienced near-death experiences where they were judged to be the wrong people. Like they were taken to their. This is another one. This one was one that I recalled from India, where they took them up to the god Yama, the Hindu god, and they said, his name was written in the book, but it was like wrong. It was written wrong. So that he's like, no, take him back. This isn't even the right person. Why did you bring him to me? And then they take him back.
I mean, I'd take that over these like malevolent fucking spirits that fuck you for the rest of your life. Like these people are having to see a psychologist on a daily basis turn into like hyper religious fucking nuts because of the shit they saw.
It's
in
weird
their
though. It's like,
NDE.
because like I will kind of pair this back up to a trip. It's like, it's very easy to slip into a bad trip when you're on like hallucinogenics. Like it's really
mindset.
easy. So I imagine that it's like when you get this high, your brain just floods you with DMT. I imagine it is essentially like on a teeter-totter. Maybe like it has a whole bunch of factors of like how you were dealing with stuff mentally, like leading up to that moment, that like your days, your past, what you had experienced like the week before. Because like honestly, it's like after having bad ones, like I know the things I need to do before taking them back in the day to not have a bad trip. Like I knew the things to avoid.
It's funny that you explained like the similarities between that too, because there's also massive similarities, like Dan was talking about, stimulating the right temporal parietal fucking lobe in your brain. And that's the exact same stimulation that you get when you're in fucking sleep paralysis, which stimulates that exact same out of body experience.
Now, okay, I want to bring this up now because Braden's touched on it twice. And that out of body experience, we've talked about that. So we've talked DMT, right? So DMT has been puzzling scientists for a long time because no one really, it's been found in like urine and stuff. So they know it's produced in the body. They just don't really know where. And like the main guy is Rick Strassman, and that's like the spirit molecule. And like, so when you dream, you produce DMT, and that's where like these vivid experiences. And he claims like, like a near-death experience, your body is flooded with DMT. But they've never.
Does it come from the pineal gland?
Well,
I thought that was proven.
No, it's not proven because like because you can't really experiment on live people. And I guess because DMT dilutes so fast. But
tell that to the fucking Germans.
Right. But
a few years ago,
Dr. Frexka, he found it in rice. Or no, sorry, no. Dr.
In rice?
No, rats. I read it bad.
I've been boiling those little motherfuckers alive this whole time.
Dr. Jimmo Borgjigen found it in the pineal gland of rats. So he was able to dissect live rats and extract DMT from a pineal gland of a rat, which is a mammal, which makes people think that perhaps it's also produced in the human pineal gland, but no one's been tested because no one's dissecting live humans currently.
It's PC. What?
Currently dissecting.
They've also done interesting studies with ketamine. They've also found that like when you have trips induced with ketamine, it also seems to simulate or have a lot of similarities with near-death experiences.
That's right. They're testing ketamine right now in people who are having at-home deaths, basically.
Yeah.
Like euthanasia, they're using these type of drugs to, you know what I mean, work towards getting that inner peace
before
around death.
Like, but like a final piece before you die, like when you're in hospice or whatever.
Exactly. Like, what, dude? You think about it. Like, if I'm ready to go, I'm walking downtown and buying as much fentanyl as I can and being like, all right, boys,
100%.
bang that shit in.
Okay,
let's see how good it is.
Yeah, we're going out with a smile. I want to trace that dragon.
On the topic of DMT, though, so they found in rats' brains, they know it's produced in the human body, so they're saying like it may be produced while you dream, and that's what gives you this. It's like because like DMT is very similar to other like psilocybin and LSD, like the molecular structure is like very similar. But there is a doctor, I don't know if it's, what's his first name? Dr. EDE. Ed or Aid? Dr. Aid.
Edie?
Dr. Edie Frexka says that DMT has been proven to bind to a sigma-1 receptor, which I guess is it plays a key role in like protecting cells from dying when oxygen is low. This is what this guy says. So if you're drowning or whatever and you're deprived of oxygen, DMT, I guess they say potentially binds to this, and the DMT is, if all is made as a connection, the DMT produces these vivid experiences. So, but that's the problem with DMT is no one really knows exactly if it's produced in the human pineal gland, but they know we produce it. So when people say NDE is like, okay, maybe an NDE is like a sudden flood of DMT at death because your body's experiencing loss of oxygen or whatever. And that's what some people say. Andrew?
I'm pretty sure that there's sigma-1 receptors like antagonist, or not antagonist, protagonist in like naloxone and stuff like that. Like people who suffer opioid overdoses. Like that's what we'd use as an antagonist to opioid overdoses.
The sigma-1 receptor? So like same.
Yeah. Well, it plays on the sigma-1 receptors. I'd have to I remember that from school.
That might be that. I have no idea. I'm reading an article. There was a big DMT conference like in 2018, and this is all this is from. So DMT is like, I mean, that's one of the leading theories is like it's DMT, and that's the spirit molecule. But you can end it right there and saying like, okay, your body produces it, you die, it floods your sensory, it floods you. You have this a vivid experience, and if you come back, you can remember it sometimes, just like a dream. Like sometimes you wake up from a dream and you're like, man, I just had the craziest fucking dream. I don't forget that. And then in 25 seconds, you're like, what was that? It's gone. Like you're completely gone.
The other thing that I forgot to mention earlier is when Snow was talking, she said something that I had actually heard a couple times in watching videos and reading stories, is that people saying that we're just caretakers here. And I always thought in my head, every time I heard that or read that, every single time I went, for whom? Like who or what? What are we? Like caretaker kind of gives me the impression of like someone has tasked us with doing that or something, right? So
yeah,
that always popped
I'm
in my head.
Terrible caretaker.
You're doing it.
Yeah, me too.
Piss poor
I'm
job.
doing an awful job.
Hey,
I'm impressed that I'm still employed.
buddy, I flipped a turtle like 6 months ago that was in the middle of the road. Walked
Carved
to the
your
side.
fucking name in them?
No, I
try to be Trump 2.0 with
that was a
fucking carving your name on manatees or what?
Manatee, yeah.
Well, when he goes and sees Yana, he'll have whatever his name is. He'll have to answer for that. He's gonna have the roosters and a manatee pointing fingers at him.
Right.
I just always thought that was interesting that they say these beings, and then a lot of the people would.
Well, yeah. I mean, like that's like metaphysical. Like, okay, we're on this realm, and we've been put here to experience it. But yeah, by who? Who's the next dimensional being above us who created? Like, are we an experiment? Are we even? You know what I mean? Like, you can get pretty deep on that. Like, okay,
yeah, and that's an important question. We'll probably talk about the afterlife or visions of the afterlife in another podcast, which warrants its own deep dive.
So many theories.
But, to speak on near-death experiences, it's like I think a lot of them, or at least the ones that are reported, you get a lot of stuff that seems to be shaped by a person's kind of cultural preconceptions of what the afterlife has been. And I would argue that in US and Canadian Western culture, I think we're pretty much preconditioned from very young age about what to expect in the afterlife. And I would say that probably plays a large part in what you see or what you interpret when it happens, because not only do, a lot of people who do experience the near NDEs and they probably feel better reporting it when it conforms to that, the tunnel of light. I saw my grandma, I saw my grandpa, I saw somebody who is my great aunt and said, it's not your time, go back. These ones are common. These themes and these images are ones that have been reported often, I think they're shaped by our culture and our personal experiences about what and preconceptions of what we think that the afterlife is going to be. You know,
Which
you're
would absolutely explain all these commonalities that we've fucking gone over with the 90% of North American experiences that we've read.
right. And I thought there was really one interesting that I wanted to touch on it real quick, is that there was that same study about the experiences, near-death experiences of Thai people. They also had a near-death experience from a person who was of Thai and Chinese mixed heritage. And he had a near-death experience where he had died and he gone into this area where he saw a friend or a group of friends who had died previously earlier, and he was able to see them. There was also other groupings of other people, but he was in this large field. He asked him for, he recalled having the feeling of being very thirsty, and he saw that his friend had water and a bottle of water. And he's like, can I have some of that water? And he said, no, that's not for you. And he pointed over to a pile of ashes. And if you're kind of aware of like what the Chinese the Chinese belief is that you will, in order to give things to your ancestors in the afterlife, you have to burn them. So if you've ever been to like Asian countries and you see all these weird shops where they have like little cars, they have little paper iPhones, they have all of these things that you basically take to the temples and you burn. And that is an offering to those in the afterlife. And that gives them the things that they would possibly need in the afterlife. And so that pile of ashes was interpreted to be like, oh, I've been burning all these offerings and they mean nothing. Instead, I should have been donating to monks, because his friends were Thai. And he's like, I should have been donating to the temples and to the monks, and I should have been donating water and actual things, and I would have been able to have this stuff. Instead, I have a pile of ashes.
Right.
And like, I mean, they have done a lot of research into other cultures and their NDEs too. Like you go back all the way to like Dr. Raymond Moody, which was the guy that kind of coined the term NDE and did the initial studies and came forward with everything. He noted that there are records of like, Egyptian cultures, Greek cultures and stuff like that have already been looking into NDEs and have written about them as well. Mm-hmm. So, you know what I mean? Like they were conscious of other cultures experiencing similar events. Yeah.
I mean, Raymond Moody, he wrote the book. Was it Life After Life? It was his book.
Mm-hmm. That's his 1975 bestseller.
Yeah.
And he also, he was the founder of the 9 stages of the NDE as well, which was used for fucking, like, the 9 stages of NDE was like the go-to until I don't think I have the date down for what we use now. Like, as of right now, we use Kenneth Ring's. Basically, he breaks it down to like a 3 stage as opposed to a 9. Right. But they use that as the template for fucking ever.
He's like the Freud of NDE.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah. And he says, like, his direct quote is like, I don't mind saying that after talking with over 1,000 people who've had these experiences and having experienced many times some of the really baffling and unusual features of these experiences, it has given me great confidence that there is a life after death. And he had experiences as a child, and that led him down to become to do all this research and stuff. So he talked to over 1,000 people. But yes, as we say, like, those are obvious. He looked into other cultures, but he interviewed Western culture.
I would still say that Egyptian and Greek culture, which have heavily influenced each other, like I would still consider that
Western.
Like, Western culture.
I guess Western culture is based on Greek, which based on Egyptian, but like, I mean. Yeah, I mean, it's
a lot of the, cool. I'm just saying, like, a lot of the central motifs and stuff are like interpretations of the afterlife.
Sure. Yeah.
All kind of like meshed together within Egyptian, Greek, Christian, Muslim. Well, Muslim and Christian are kind of Abrahamic religions.
Yeah.
All kind of build on each other. Stem from the same thing, so yeah.
They build like the religion that takes over from the previous builds on the prior religion's stories and just gives new names and new experiences and. So
I just say like they wouldn't be as far apart from each other as say like how Hinduism is very far from like a Baptist,
right?
Like how their perceptions of whatever afterlife and all those things are very different.
They're more
So
aligned.
yeah.
I hear what you mean.
Yeah. So they'd be more aligned. So I would feel like, yeah. So they'd be like, yeah, this is the Egyptians said this. And it's like, well, the Egyptians and Greek culture says this. I'm like, yeah, but Greek was kind of like, they're all kind of like mixed together. So
Now that we've gone kind of long, but I got one more thing I want to talk about because it was a very, very well-known case. And that was the case of Pam Reynolds. And the surgeon was Robert Spetzler, and he had to do like this girl had like a huge like aneurysm in her brain. They had I can't remember what it's called. They pretty much freeze your body, drain your blood, drill into your head, fix the aneurysm, pump the blood back in, warm you up, and revive you. So this girl was out for a long time, and
So they put her on ECMO basically.
It's called as hypothermic cardiac arrest. So they pretty much they froze.
So she was a hypothermic cardiac arrest.
Yeah, that's what they performed a procedure known as hypothermic cardiac arrest. So,
which like is a way of preserving the body, right?
Yeah, because
like, same thing. Like when you find somebody who's like we were talking earlier about in freezing waters, right? You slow the heart rate down, and preserve the body. Like that's why we would work. You know what I mean? We'd attempt to resuscitate a body that's been in freezing cold waters or in freezing cold temperatures a lot longer than somebody that was found at, you know what I mean, like a room temperature.
Yeah, her body was lowered to 10 degrees Celsius, it's known as a standstill operation. And pretty much, like her brain was non-responsive, but she came back and reported. She's like they put these like headphones in your ears, and they shoot like loud sounds to like monitor your brain function. And when it goes flat, they know you're dead. And they taped her.
There's nothing there.
Taped her eyes. She's completely out. And she came back and gave accounts of like she knew what drill they were using. She knew what they were talking about, and she knew all this stuff. So this is one of the cases that got like international press because it was like a kind of a one of a kind because she was like a popular singer-songwriter. So she was already a celebrity. So that's why I got so much press. But like the doctor Spetzler was like, there's no way she should have been able to know, because she was flatlined. She had no brain activity. But she came back and was like, yeah, they were talking about this. This is the type of drill they were using. It looked like a toothbrush. Those are the bits they used. And then other people are obviously like, no, she must not have been unconscious. She must have been slightly conscious and absorbed it. And maybe the earplugs weren't in all the way. But they're like, to this day, the Dr. Spetzler's like, no, there's no possible way she should have been able to known it. She came out of her body. She listened down upon the group operating on her. She witnessed all this stuff that she shouldn't have been, in this one doctor's mind and some others, should not have been able to know.
Well, and that's the thing. Like we can offer up these explanations like shunting blood away from the eyes and this and that to cause those symptoms. We don't have definitive proof of what causes these sensations. We don't. There is no definitive proof. Zero.
Yep. Yeah. So I mean, it's a really interesting topic. There's just so many stories. You could go for days. You could start a podcast with 1,000 episodes of dissecting people's NDEs and talking to doctors. But let's wrap up this one. Let's some quick theories. Braden, what's your thoughts on NDE?
I think you're tapping into something. Snow talked about tapping into the Akashic records. I can't remember what she referred to it as. But as for like the story you just told about her being able to hear all this stuff in the room, I think that's because, if we're getting into this metaphysical aspect, is that, time is a construct. And I believe that maybe we're all connected in the way that like it's like we're one being, like one giant being experiencing reality through multiple people, right? So it's like, even though she's not alive anymore in that state, she's perceiving reality in that place through the other people in the room.
Yeah.
And that's where she gets like she can hear, and the knowledge of the drills and stuff and like what they were using is because she was tapped into, the Akashic record and all these other people experiencing that same thing at the same time, where that it fills in the pieces for her. But I do think you're tapping into something that's, all of us are going to find out one day or another what it's about.
Yeah. No, I think I would agree with that. I think that I mean, it's hard with like, because we live in a material science world, and if it's not provable or repeatable, like it's really hard to take as true, right? But like, you read all these stories and they're like, and so many people come back different, and you're like as Braden said, like I've always kind of thought, like, since I started getting into this stuff, like, probably 10 years ago, like we are the universe experiencing itself. I mean, we're just like the combination of all matter, and like through evolution, everything, we are, I mean, whatever way you think about it, we are like, the universe has evolved us to this point to experience the universe and ask questions about it. So at the point when you die, whatever that is, consciousness, when you die and you're passing, either it's, it's a rush of DMT right before you die and you're pronounced dead and you don't experience time right, or it's like, my time at that experience, this energy of like, because, energy, it's not created or destroyed, transformed. Like that conscious energy is being transformed now to the next, whatever that is. Like
energy can only be transferred. It cannot be created or destroyed.
Boom. That's the thing,
First
right?
law of thermodynamics.
So I was raised religious till I was about 7, and I went the opposite way, but I've still always kept that, like, okay, well, maybe all these stories are based on something like a central story of humanity, or like a creation. And that's, you pass and that energy is transformed, and some of these people get a glimpse at the other side and they're brought back and they bring their stories with them. And it's just very hard to prove, I think, either way. Andrew?
For me, like, again, I don't want this to come across as everybody would expect me to lean on, but it's just hard for me to think on that level. You know what I mean? Maybe I'm just not awakened enough or not, but like in my mind, the way I perceive it is it just seems like some type of, like we talked about earlier, thanatosis or apparent death. Whereas in animals, they go against what you'd think would be every survival instinct instead of fighting to the last bit to survive, and kind of give in and go into this tonic immobility and just give in and play dead. And I think that's our brain's way of easing us into these factors. And I think the reason why these people are surviving is because of medical intervention. Like we're the reason why we're able to hear these stories is because these people, these stories aren't happening with people that died out in the wilderness and nobody found them. They just suddenly came back to life and walked their way back into society.
Bring them back.
They're in fucking hospitals. They're getting the best treatment they possibly could, and they're surviving due to medical intervention. And again, I understand. I'm not trying to sound closed-minded. That's just what makes sense to me. And that's just how my brain works.
And that's maybe that's why it's Western, like modern times, because before we weren't really bringing that many people back. You're dead.
Even now, like our successful ROSC or return of spontaneous circulation rates are fucking astronomically low. Like you can get return of spontaneous circulation and still end up as a fucking organ donor.
Right.
You're not getting up and walking into the hospital. That's extremely rare. Right. Like they have insane rates. Like Seattle EMS has something like a fucking 60% rate of ROSC, which is insane. Yet, how many of those people are walking out of the hospital to tell their story?
Not
10%, maybe?
Not 60%. Yeah.
Not a chance, right? Like, so, that's just kind of where I'm talking from. And like, don't get me wrong. I have stories of successfully getting, ROSC with an elderly patient that wakes up and looks at me being like, why didn't you let me die? I was with my wife.
Right.
I was happy. Everything was good. You know what I mean? Like I've had these NDEs right in front of me. So I've seen them, but you know what I mean? The reason why they ended up the way they did is because of intervention.
Brought them back. No, I hear that.
Whether it's divine intervention or healing hands, I don't know.
Yeah.
Dan, what do you think?
I'm not sure. I don't know. It's above my pay grade.
All of ours.
I think NDEs are an extremely interesting topic, and the fact that they have so many facets to them that seem to dictate what people see or what people experience, whether it is like I said, a majority of the data, not all of it, but the majority of the data and the stories that we do have do come from the United States and from Western Europe. Like those are most of the studies that are, and people who have done the studies, people have done the literature reviews, people have recorded the things. Like Andrew said, a contributing factor is also that we do have resuscitation rates have increased in the last few decades. Like we have more people coming back, surviving these times of when they're going to be death. How people interpreted this differs, and it actually varies widely. And people want to say that that they have all these commonalities. That means there must be something after, but there's also a lot of differences between experiences. Like I said, if you look into some other cultures and their near-death experiences, ones that are far removed from the influences of modern Western TV and stuff, and the whole, like, you die and your spirit comes out of your body and the whoa, like, you can't tell me you didn't see that in a Looney Tunes cartoon or whatever, like some cartoon when you were a kid that you received that, was it St. George or whoever at the St. Peter at the gates? Like, you can't tell me you didn't see that in some cartoon at least 3 or 4 times. So these are important experiences. People, there have been studies done that people perceive these as being real, but so are also other traumatic experiences that people have experiences. Traumatic experiences and ones that you perceive that threaten your very being and your very existence, you take those to heart. They change you. So I can't really say that these are like we've already said, these are experiences that need to be studied, but it's very difficult to do because it's not something that you can exactly apply the scientific method, because you get hung up on the one part where you're...
What is going on?
What's happening?
It's a space news that's not supposed to come up yet.
Oh.
No.
It scared me.
Scared the fuck out of me too.
Space ghost.
Sorry, Dan. Continue.
Yeah. We can't experiment with it. We can't manipulate it. We can't do anything. You can't predict it. So it's something that's very, very hard for us to wrap our heads around. So maybe down the road we'll get better at it, but unless you can really simulate death, and you can reliably simulate death and accurately simulate death, and then have a large group of people participate in a study, you can't really say that all of this is something.
Does autoerotic asphyxiation, does that count? Or?
Some people would say it does. Like, I've read a couple parts where, like, I've read a couple articles where, like, that kind of would fit in there.
ATT is not performing flatliners. We're not killing ourselves and bringing ourselves back here.
Hey, like I said, we don't advise it either, because I've unfortunately been to a few of those that don't work out in their favor.
We've heard a couple, yeah.
Yeah.
Fun topic.
The one thing that's not lost on me with our opinions on NDEs is that, and correct me if I'm wrong, but both Dan and Andrew have never dabbled in psychedelics.
They have not.
Right?
Not
That's
yet.
not lost on me. And I'm not saying there's nothing wrong with you, but I'm like, as someone
Is marijuana psychedelic? No?
Extreme edible doses could be psychedelic.
As someone who has experience, I'm like, hey, I like everything you're saying, but I'm like, ooh, I've had some weird experiences on them where I'm like, there's an unknown factor there.
That's what I want to ask the scientists who perform all the experiments and do the research. Like, you done a little mushrooms? Just a little? Have you got a couple on you?
That's another thing I wanted to add to it, is that the study of these NDEs is never entirely objective. A lot of these, because it is universally applicable, everybody dies, because you can't really remove yourself from it. It's very difficult to study these kinds of things.
Yeah.
So it's like nobody can actually do it. And a lot of the scientists who do study it are people who have personal experiences with this, and they just want to know more about it, but they also have either experienced themselves or they've been close with somebody who has experienced it. So it's really hard for some of these studies to come off as objective if you know what you're looking at. And it's like, well, that looks kind of a bit skewed, and you might have had a little, there might have been some confirmation bias here or there. Like, so it's difficult. Like I said, it's just difficult to study it.
Boys, make me a concoction. Make it up. I'll do it. I want to kill my ego.
I'm down. Right now.
I'm ready.
Right now I have in my freezer cannabis/psilocybin cookies.
All right, let's do it. Chocolate chip?
I think they're peanut butter, but
that's
I could get chocolate chip if that's what you want. I can get chocolate chip for you, no problem.
Is it going to kill my ego? Am I going to stop buying shit on eBay every other day?
Not for a while. It might come
You're
back.
going to buy more stuff on eBay.
You're going to buy more stuff.
No, I don't want to.
You just won't feel bad about it.
Yeah, exactly.
Am I going to stop buying Rogaine?
You're going to start
That'd be
buying stuff
perfect.
that you don't care. You're going to buy that jet figure, that G1 Jetfire figure, action figure that you want. Like, you're going to want it.
All right. It's a really fun topic, and I'm sure we'll come back to it in the future, but let's move on.
Let's get into some Oh, let's fire up the Randomatron and see what it spits out.
Space news is already going.
Space
baby.
news is first. God damn.
Space.
Was that an exciting? Yeah, it was space.
Space.
Whoa.
Whoa.
It's crazy, hey?
Little fake out. There we got you.
Have you guys thought about space lately? Like, whoa, man.
It's the place.
The SpaceX successfully landed a Starship for the first time. The SN10 Starship prototype launched, did a fucking flip, landed.
What?
Elon twisted, SN10 successfully landed. And then
They did a flip
unfortunately,
on purpose.
oh yeah, dude, it was awesome.
purpose.
It was like it launched, did a flip, and then landed. It was amazing.
Yeah, it was pretty rad.
Unfortunately, after that, a little while later, it just exploded in the most magnificent explosion you've ever seen. This giant metallic dick
Is
just
do we have camera
exploded.
of this? Is there film?
Oh yeah,
of
you
it
can
exploding?
watch it. I don't know if we can use any of the footage on the live stream, but yeah, you can pull it up. Hashtag look it up. It was fucking
No, I don't think
Crazy.
I don't think fucking Elon Musk is gonna fucking bust us for this.
Dude, it's space karma. Don't be doing flips.
That's we're
Space
gonna
karma
watch it.
got
We're
off
gonna watch.
to
We're
get
gonna watch
after
the
you.
flip. We're gonna watch the flip. Fuck it.
Yeah, we're gonna do it.
that's not the flip.
No, here it comes.
That's not the flip.
Here's the
It
flip.
already flipped. Now it's gonna explode.
Oh, is,
Yeah, it looks
oh,
like
is
a
that not
big
the flip?
dilly.
Yeah.
You're right. It totally looks like a dilly.
Okay. I'm gonna turn off the volume. Okay, here it is. If you're not watching the live stream, we're gonna explain for you. Here's Starship in the air.
Starship dilly.
Yeah,
Us.
the Great American Challenge.
Maybe this video is too long. Oh no! Here.
I just
Oh,
wanna
here's the
see-
flip. Here's the
I just
flip.
wanna
Here's the
see it
flip.
blow up.
Come on. Here's the flip. Here's the flip. Do it. There it goes. Oh, why did you change cameras? Oh, it's flipping though.
Oh,
Just
that was very anticlimactic.
There's
there.
better videos that you can look on it of it. You can watch it execute the flip.
There's
come
flipping.
back down to earth.
Here it goes.
Oh yeah, look at this.
Oh shit!
Watch this. It's just plummeting to earth. And then as it's coming down,
Come on, Starship plummeting.
here it goes.
4 minutes 48,
Buddy,
49.
listen.
At least you can
50.
edit some of this out.
Yeah, we'll edit
I've
it on
seen,
the podcast.
buddy. I've seen better fucking flips into the ball pit at McDonald's here.
Well,
This is
dude,
fucking
yeah,
lame.
but
it's
listen.
a 1,000-ton Starship or whatever, 10,000-ton Starship. All right,
It's just
I'm
plummeting.
impressed.
It's just plummeting to earth. But anyways, do we have the
it does-
explosion? This is
it-
so long. They must have zoomed in. This thing is fucking still falling.
So
all right, fuck it, it's
does
over.
when does it flip?
I don't know, fucking know. I thought I already.
Well, eventually,
I thought
when it's like a 10-minute falling
yeah,
video.
it looks.
I think they
It's
had
about
it
as
on
good
loop.
as
It's too long. It's
Michael
too long.
Scott's parkour.
You know what? This has actually convinced me that David Weiss was right. I don't believe that was even real.
That's got a.
No.
That's nothing more than a helium balloon with a firecracker attached to the bottom.
Yeah, that's a helium balloon with firecracker if I've ever seen one before. But anyways, hashtag look it up. Spectacular footage. This was interesting. Engineers have proposed the first model for a physically possible warp drive.
I don't understand this at all.
No, me neither. I understood the
headline.
tagline. The headline was like in my realm of like understanding. And then within like 3 sentences, I was like, huh?
Maybe we should get Dan to read it then.
Basically, if you like Star Wars, you're going to be able to do hyperspeed,
It's pretty much saying that.
You mean like light speed?
light speed.
Well, it's called something called an Alcubierre drive could achieve this faster than light travel. Just what it's saying. Some type of warp drive, like a Star Trek, like
Oh, is that the one that like bends space and time? Are you talking
Yeah,
about the
warp
bend
drive.
space and time, or uses expanding space to propel you in front? That
pretty
one?
much, yeah, by Miguel Alcubierre. Back in 1994, he first proposed it, and now they're saying it's theoretically possible. And you're like, well, that's awesome. It's theoretically possible, but let's build one then. Let's go. No,
Well, I think it's theoretically possible because like you technically you're not breaking any laws. You're just kind of like bending them. You're just like you're not breaking any laws of physics, but you're bending them a bit because it's like what is like you're expanding space behind you in order to propel you forward. You're like thinning space in front of you, and then you expand space behind you. So therefore, you're like propelling your craft at like near relativistic speeds or whatever. I don't think you can go near light speed, but you can't go beyond it. That would still be something else.
no, it's called. Well, they're calling it like negative energy which allows you to get past the general relativity problems of faster than light travel. That's what they're saying. Theoretically.
Okay.
Negative energy.
It's basically the same process I use to sprint.
Negative energy?
Yeah.
Can't wait for the running challenge. It's going to be good.
Yeah. What else do I have here?
Perseverance.
Oh, Perseverance. It's officially roving after a successful test drive. So I guess
She's
they
driving.
tested it around. They drove it 6.5 meters in 33 minutes on
Blistering speed.
blister
Did it do a flip? Did it do a flip?
No, it did a 150-degree turn, though. And then it
That's pretty
backed up
exciting.
2.5 meters and took a picture of its tire tracks in the Martian dust.
Yep.
Does it have the fucking
And then it
backup
found
alarm?
Mars's oldest tractor.
Yeah.
That's
Technically, if it
Yeah.
stays there, you could say that, it could be one day in a museum as Mars' oldest tractor.
Hey, well, no, the first one would have been, but either way, we have 2 rovers on Mars. The NASA,
Second oldest tractor.
the China, and then we have the one orbiting from UAE. So
Yeah.
we got 3 currently collecting data about Mars.
The
So
Martian planet.
pretty dope. Let's talk about Apophis. Just did its flyby by Earth, about 5 times the distance from the Earth to Moon, as a test, a warm up for the prediction of 2029 Apophis crashing in to Earth.
Well, flying by. It's not
Potentially.
going to crash, but is there any probability of it crashing?
Yeah, there is actually a probability of it crashing because it's going to get so close to. It's going to get closer to, or as close to Earth as some of our farthest satellites, as the prediction, which is pretty close. So if it gets heated by the sun in a certain way, a little jet of gas or something, or who knows, like it gets a mild collision, it could knock it on course. A small probability. We're talking like fractions of a percent, but probably.
Let's just
but
nuke it.
it's possible.
It's possible it could
Why
happen.
did they have to name it Apophis? Is what I want.
Isn't
to
the
know.
god of
That makes it so much worse. That's the god of chaos.
Is that what it is?
Like a serpent.
is like Egypt? Is that like Egyptian or something?
Yeah, it's terrifying, and it's the bad guy from Stargate.
Apophis,
It's even
yeah.
worse. It's terrifying. We need to send our fucking finest Alberta oil riggers up there to drill a fucking hole in it
St. Kurt
and
Russell.
blast
We'll
it.
get it to-
listening
Yeah.
to some fucking
They'll get it done.
Aerosmith.
They'll get it done.
Maybe
Get it done.
Mr. Kelowna can be the lead.
Why? There's got to be puddles up there. He drains puddles.
Yeah. All right. Let's fire up the randomatron, see what it spits out tonight.
Here we go. Here it comes. Oh, what? Oh, you guys getting that? Oh, shit. Mongoose foul, baby. All right, what?
So, like always, we know this is getting played out. Well, gonna go ahead and reiterate it. Gonna say the story in the first person because it's easier, but it happened to a friend of a friend of a friend of mine.
Of course.
Nothing to do with me. I wasn't there. I have no idea. So, on this certain day, beautiful sunny day. You know what I mean? Winter's ending, sun's out, it's starting to warm up a bit, but it's still jacket weather, right? So, it's
like-
a little nipply, but we're getting close.
So like
Certain
February,
town.
maybe end of February, early March.
Probably end of February. I think that would be a good place. And let's put it in somewhat of like a climate like the interior. Let's say, you know what I mean? Like an interior climate.
Oh, yeah,
Small,
like
small,
Okanagan,
medium
yeah.
sized,
In February,
small,
somewhere.
medium sized city or something.
Yeah. And this particular call comes in, right? Pops up, vague, not a lot of description, just, middle-aged male lacerations. Okay, interesting. No explanation why there's lacerations. We don't know. Don't think anything of it. but we're going to respond routinely to this call. Routine, no lights and sirens. So we proceed to this call. Nice suburban area. You know, and as we approach, you see kids playing, nothing's going on. And oddly enough, as you get closer, you start seeing people kind of like standing at the edge of their driveways, like kind of like looking towards the ambulance, being like, you know what I mean? Deer in the headlights, eyes are big. And you're like, well, this is a little bit weird. So we pull up to this certain address. Nice house, beautiful, 3 stories, well kept, manicured lawn, everything like that. Okay, great. Approach the house, bang on the door, and right away you get inside, upstairs. Okay, cool. Door's open. Open the door, and as soon as the door opens, you know things are a little bit off. I'm talking like pools of congealed blood soaking the front entrance. Right? So it's already congealed, which means this blood isn't brand new. You know what I mean? It's probably maybe half an hour old, whatever. And you know, as you walk up the stairs, these pools of blood get bigger and bigger, and you're like, kind of look at your partner and I'm like, well, this isn't what we thought it was. And as we get up here, you know what I mean? You see people frantically running back and forth, grabbing towels and stuff like that, and other person kind of running with handfuls of these packets in their hands, and you know, and you're kind of trying to look for the, hey, where are we going? And these people don't even pay attention to us and run right by. And a lady runs by holding a bunch of towels, being like, over here, come with me. And as we get up, we walk into this ransacked top floor. Big, beautiful house, tables upturned, glasses smashed, shit everywhere. And then this man kind of piled up, sitting up against a kitchen island, holding his arm. And you're like, okay, man, like, hey, everything's okay. You know, paramedics, we're here to help. And as he kind of looks up to you, you can see, you know what I mean? His right arm is hanging on by a fucking thread. You can see his humerus right down to the bone, multiple lacerations to the bone. The bone looks like it's almost fucking cut in half.
Was it funny?
Wasn't funny whatsoever. All right. So we walk up to this guy and we're like, what the fuck happened? And he's like, nothing. Just don't worry about it. Like, I need help.
It's but a scratch.
and he's holding his arm. And as he kind of lets go of it, you can see blood starts spurting. Bright red blood spurting from his right from the ditch of his elbow, which is a big red flag because you're right away. If blood's spurting, it's normally an artery. Right? And if you have an arterial bleed, this guy can bleed out fast. So right away, you know, look at my partner. I'm like, throw a tourniquet on this guy. So we tourniquet his right arm and start looking around for other injuries. And this guy's got lacerations to both legs, abdomen, everything. And I'm like, man, are you going to tell us what happened? Like, we need to know. We need to know what happened to you. And he's like, don't worry about it. It's fine. Everything's fine. So we start patching this guy up. Stop the bleed, tourniquet on his right arm, throw in a line, large bore, throw in one line in his other arm, and then hit him with some TXA, tranexamic acid, which is a clotting agent. Like, we're going to stop this bleed because this guy's got internal bleeding going on. And this entire time, people are fucking buzzing by as you hear toilets flushing, and just like, there's probably about 8 people in this house busy working around. You know, and it wasn't until like we got this guy kind of loaded up in our stair chair and bringing him down the stairs until I realized, like, you know what I mean? There's 2 phones sitting on the fucking table. There's people running mysterious packages into the bathroom. And I'm like, listen, man, like, it's all good. Like, you know what I mean? I'm like, give us a description of this guy. The police need to be involved. We're not going to get you in trouble. Like, don't worry about it. Like, we're going to get you to the hospital taken care of. But if somebody tried to fucking murder you, we need to know, and we need to know what he tried to murder you with, and we need to know if we're safe, right? And like, we're questioning this guy, he's not giving us anything. We get him, we're at the front door, we load him onto our bed, and I'm talking to the guy, and finally he's like, listen, he's like, all you need to know is it's a 6 foot something male, tattoos on his neck, tattoos on his arms, he's driving a black sedan, and he's, you know what I mean? He's telling me this, and I'm like getting ready on the radio. I'm like, listen, guys, we need the cops here, code 3 right away. Keep your eyes out for this. And I'm like in a black sedan. And as I'm saying black sedan, you know, a car kind of starts making its way towards this driveway, and it misses the driveway and parks on the lawn. And as I'm describing this black sedan, I look up. Oh, it's a black sedan. That's weird. And all of a sudden, you can see the guy's eyes go fucking just this wide. And he's like, get back inside. We need to get back inside now. We got to go back inside. And I'm like, what do you mean? And he's like, that's the fucking guy. That's him right there. And he's on our bed. Our bed doesn't fit in the house. And I'm like, listen, it's fine. Like, you know what I mean? It's all good. Lethal Weapon 2, diplomatic immunity. We're paramedics. We're fucking fine. Approach this guy like, listen, man, get back in your car, kick rocks, get out of here. Cops are on their way. You know, to my surprise, he doesn't listen.
Oh.
He flips his fucking seat forward and starts grabbing from his seat.
Oh, no.
And this entire time in the back of my head, I'm like, what the fuck could this guy have used to inflict these injuries? Like the damage to his bone, like I'm thinking like an axe, a machete, like what could have done this? He pulls out this fucking weapon that I swear I've seen in Vermintide, the Warhammer game we play. It's like a fucking pole with a spear on the top of it and an axe.
Like
A
Never
pole
seen
axe,
anything
man.
like this before.
Exactly.
Whatever the fuck that is. And I'm like, dude, you need to get the fuck out of here. The cops are on their way. And he just looks at me and starts fucking scraping it on the guy's driveway. And I'm like, I looked at my partner and I'm like, unbuckle him. So we unbuckle this fucking guy, fireman carry, and sprint back into his house as this guy's running at the door. Doing our best fucking shoot her Jurassic Park to close this fucking door in time. Like, panicking. Like, you know what I mean? Filling our fucking pants as this guy's hacking the door. Here's Johnny. You know what I mean? Like, fucking losing our minds. We get the fucking door closed, lock it. The guy's hacking at the door. Beautiful, expensive house, nice reinforced door. He's not getting through. Get upstairs to the window, you know what I mean? To like patch our guy up, start stabilizing him, and like look out the window long enough to see this fucking guy with his giant pole axe get fucking tased and jacked up by the police, and just looking at the window, like smiling at him. And he's getting, you know, he's on the ground, he's getting handcuffed, and I'm just kind of like, ooh, you know, sucks to suck, buddy. And he looks into my soul and does this.
The throat
Straight up Undertaker, thumb under his neck.
slit.
And I was like, maybe this is not the best decision. Maybe I shouldn't be laughing.
I'm not coming back here.
This could be my Sideshow Bob. I could be his Bart Simpson.
Gonna get a call in a few weeks from the prison.
Oh my, could you imagine? Guy sounds like Frasier. I'm fucking,
I seen your badge number,
man,
Andrew.
terrifying.
I know what happened.
What is
That's
that?
what
What
happened.
is, what is that tattoo? It says "Die Andrew Die." Oh no, that's German for the Andrew the. Oh, okay. Parole approved.
Yeah.
That's a fucked up mongoose file right there.
That is fucked up.
That's fucked up.
Yes, sir. Talk about NDEs.
Yeah.
Did you see anything?
Just fucking piss in the crotch of my pants. That's about it.
All right, this one's running long. So if you're not on our Patreon already,
Third of the week.
Oh,
theory
of the week.
record scratch. Theory of the week. Correct. Thanks, Dan. Andrew, who do we have this week?
Our theory of the week is going out to one of our most active Patreon members. She's always on. She's always quick to message, to tag, to engage in conversation, to welcome newcomers. This individual, theory of the week, has been dealing with quite a stressful situation last. She's been spending a lot of time in the hospital with a sick kid, and I can't think of anybody that deserves it more than Jennifer Swope.
Jennifer, theory
Hey,
of the week.
Swope.
Woo!
Awesome supporter, awesome fan, awesome friend. Hope everything works out for you.
Personal fave. Well deserved.
Yep.
Overdue. It's about time.
And when everything resolves in the hospital, you let us know, because I mean that's just horrible all around shitty. But Jennifer Swope, theory of the week. All right. If you're not supporting the show, check out patreon.com/Alien Theorists podcast, or look for the link in the podcast description. This week's newest supporters. Great name. Liquor Guide My Hand went up in a pledge.
Beauty.
Rachel Jackson. George Felix. Emma 666. Don't
Number of the
Don't play
beast.
too many Ouija boards. Elliot Davis, Nacho, Kyle James, Jesse Dowd, Blood Worthy, Jens John, a full year pledge by AJ Santos, Daniel Clouston, Chris Scott. We actually had a coach called Chris Scott back in the day. I wonder if he's listening.
Is it spelled with a K?
It's not. It's not Chris Scott then, I guess. Not that Chris Scott.
We don't talk about yoga enough.
Yeah.
I love yoga. Yoga is saved by flexibility, I'll tell you something. Ashley Gunn with a full year pledge. Woo. Disaster of Chaos. Bazooka Butt Joe. The Michigan Conspiracy in hiding. Dallas Hulovic. Chase Lovelace. Sean went up to a $10 pledge. The Magical Bastards. It's a great band name if it's not.
That is a great name.
Gabriella Carbone. And the last pledge of the month or of the week is someone who goes by Just Bones. Thank you very much for supporting the show.
And just quickly, too, the meat draw winner for February, our $10 tier member, Phil Farmer, 80. You won the meat draw from February. Next meat draw is coming out in March. If you're Patreon, $10 or more, you're automatically entered. 2 entries for 10, 2 for 25, 3 for 50. And you can get on Instagram or Facebook, put it in the comments, get yourself some extra ones as well.
Free entry, anyone, just share the posts. We're all good. That it for this week.
That's it. And as we say at the end of these things, keep those eyes on the skies.
See you in after hours.
The comfort of your favorite seat is now your comfy car selling command center, thanks to Carvana.
It doesn't get any better than this.
Your favorite seat's the best spot in the house. Make it even better by entering your license plate or VIN and getting a real offer in minutes.
There really is no place like home.
And speaking of home, Carvana will pick up your car from yours after you finalize your offer. Visit Carvana.com or download the app and sell your car from your comfy place. That's not just the sound of that first sip of Morning Joe. It's the sound of someone shopping for a car on Carvana from the comfort of home.
That's a good blend.
It's time to take it easy, like answering some easy questions to get pre-qualified for a car in minutes.
Talk about starting the morning right.
Just like customizing your terms so your car fits your budget. Visit Carvana.com or download the app to experience car shopping the way it should be. Convenient, comfortable. Ah.